Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Workers' Comp, Brad Pitt, and David and Goliath. I'm Jen Pui, Vice President of Operations and Member Services for IIABCal. I want to thank our new associate member, Samuel Hale, for sponsoring today's webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded and we have muted your phones to eliminate background noises. Attendees can submit a question in the question box of your GoToMeeting taskbar. We will address all questions at the end of the webinar. In addition, webinar handout material is available for download in the handout box of your taskbar. We are excited to have with us today Michael DeMano, a licensed broker for over 34 years and certified authority in workers' compensation. Mr. DeMano is a thought leader and serial entrepreneur who created, financed, and sold several innovative fast growth businesses in the insurance and human capital space. Michael is the founder and chief executive officer of Employee Insure LLC, a holding company of several businesses that use technology, insurance, and employment services to create solutions. Oops, I'm sorry. Sorry, I lost my whole email went out. Anyway, he creates solutions, and one of the companies is Samuel Hale LLC. So I will I can finish up your bio at the end, Mike, but take it away.
No, that's fine. I think you got the majority of it. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having us. So everyone remembers the story of David and Goliath, the classic tale of an underdog who came out on top. We've been attracted to underdog stories like this throughout history. We love underdog stories because they provide us a sense of hope and inspiration that justice and righteousness will ultimately win in the end, no matter how difficult the odds may seem. Slide, David. We've all been to the fair and we know the excitement of the claw vending game. Some incredible prize that sits in the glass case and your child or your inner child begs to play. So you plow your hard-earned money for the minute chance of getting the mechanical arm to deliver the prize so you can be the hero in the eyes of your child. There you go. Another memorable story of an underdog who won an unfair game is the story of Moneyball. Moneyball is a movie based on the true story of how the Oakland Athletics general manager Billy Beane found a way to win the unfair game of Major League Baseball. Small market teams didn't have the money to buy the best players, so Billy Beane, played by Brad Pitt, developed the understanding of undervalued players, and in 1 year he built a team that won as many games as the New York Yankees. But the Yankees paid $1.4 million for a win, and Billy Beane only paid $260,000 because of his understanding of that statistic. Next slide. So Beane faced resistance and skepticism from traditionalists in the baseball world. However, he persisted in his data-driven approach and ultimately found success, proving that sometimes winning an unfair game requires thinking outside the box and challenging the status quo. And this is where I get to compare myself to Brad Pitt. In 2015, I had a light industrial staffing company with a 4-year ex-mod history of 72 to 87. And in 3 months, about 4 attorneys and 25 or so employees filed enough bogus claims to cause my ex-mod to ultimately rise by over 100 points. And this generated an additional $2 million of premium, but the problem was I wasn't making $2 million. So suddenly, like David and from the Bible and Brad Pitt from Moneyball, I found myself in an unfair game. But it was for real, and the stakes were my family's well-being, the business I built, and the people we employed. Next slide. So it turns out baseball and workers' comp have one thing in common, and that's that they have a lot of statistics. So like Brad Pitt, we looked to the numbers to find the undervalued statistics to see if we could gain an understanding that the rest of the market ignored. And there it is, the most undervalued and unappreciated stat in the largest insurance market in the US. Here, this CWIC report shows that litigation drives costs by as much as 500%. The WCRB in their State of the State report, which comes out every January, summarizes the trillions of dollars of payroll and claims data that they receive every year. This further validates that litigation is where the opportunity lies. In this slide here, the first time that the WCRIB put out a stat like this showed that the frictional costs at the state of California were about $3.5 billion in 2017. If you look at the second bullet point on the right, you'll see that they state that $3.5 billion in frictional costs is more than the cost that they paid for indemnity benefits for the employees, injured employees. So the cost of fighting was driving more of the premium dollar than the actual indemnity benefits. Next. And so this is an example of how that manifests itself. If we want to know the cost of litigation in California, we can simply compare the rates to our neighboring states. So this slide here, I'll use 6504 as an example. This carrier charges $14.83 as a manual rate in California, but you can step across the border into Oregon, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, etc., and the price drops dramatically. And so the question is, why? Go to the next one. And the answer is litigation. And so litigation is the difference between California and other states, considering that we have a no-fault insurance, which isn't supposed to have litigation, and yet some counties in California have litigation rates as high as 50%. So California offers a way to go around the litigation, if you will. The way to beat the litigation is through something called the California carve-out. The carve-out allows employers to create their own alternative for workers' compensation. And there's two key differences. So in the carve-out, the employer can create their own benefits delivery system and an alternative to the WCAB as a way to resolve disputes. We always say it's like having a prenup with your employees. Next slide. So a little bit about the history of the carve-out. It's a kind of a remote labor code that allows for these benefits. And the first of the two labor codes was created back in 1993, Labor Code 3201.5. And that labor code was specifically for construction. And construction businesses were allowed to create their own system for benefits. And what was unique about 3201.5 is there's literally no attorneys allowed in that system at all. For those of you who were around in 2003, we had a complete collapse of the workers' comp market, and we lost all of our monoline carriers. In 2004, Governor Schwarzenegger created workers' comp reform, and he created Labor Code 3201.7. So the construction carve-out had a history of, during that 10-year trial period, of saving over 50 cents on the dollar. And so Schwarzenegger thought it would be great to expand that labor code and allow anyone to use it. And that started back in 2004. Next. So this is how it works. So if a claim shows up at the WCAB or the TPA gets a notice of representation, a letter is sent to the WCAB and the case is dismissed for lack of jurisdiction. So in a carve-out program, the disputes are handled by an ombudsman. An ombudsman acts as the judge, jury, and the sheriff with the goal of having a faster system for getting the employee back to work and resolving any disputes that might come up. The disputes can be, by the way, with the employer, with the doctor, with the insurance company. The ombudsman is there for all parties to make it as fast as possible. 90% of the time, historically, the ombudsman is successful in resolving the disputes. However, if he or she is not successful, anyone in the process can apply for mediation. And mediation typically happens within 30 days. And if mediation doesn't work, you can move to a legal process of binding arbitration. And binding arbitration, less than 0.5% of the time of all of the ADR claims in the state of California actually make it to this legal process. Next. So despite the obvious benefits of it, there are a limited number of companies who actually are able to take advantage of the code. Most of them are municipalities and Fortune 500 companies that have a long-term approach to workers' comp. And the reason why that's important is there are some restrictions in terms of creating it. And also, you are building a separate system that costs money and time and requires the coordination of your staff. So just because you move into a carve-out doesn't mean you instantly get the savings. It requires your safety and loss control and the TPA and so on to all utilize that program to its maximum benefit. So, these are companies and entities that have a long-term perspective that makes that possible. Next slide. So this is an example of how Samuel Hale looks at loss runs to help accentuate the benefits of what the carve-out can do. So here we've carved this customer's claims up into two piles. The A claims are non-litigated claims, and they generally represent the majority. So they represent the majority of the claims, but a minority of the actual costs. So the A claims average 4,000, and you can see the B claims, which are the minority in number, but clearly significantly more in terms of the total incurred. And so this is a typical example that we see. It's not an exception. It's much more the norm, where you see the non-litigated costs are 4,000 and the litigated costs are 56,000. So the only difference between these two are the B claims are on appeal at the WCAB. So both claims have some CT, both claims have some post-term. It really is just the cost of the WCAB system and the fact that the lawyers can play games there that generate the difference in cost. So this is some stats from some of our customers to demonstrate the massive impact that ADR can have. And again, these are not exceptions. We are averaging, since the time we started, about 75 cents on the dollar savings in claims cost from the customer's prior XMod history to their history with Samuel Hale after coming onto the ADR program. And you also notice, go back just a slide real quick. If you notice that in red here, these customer XMods before coming to Samuel Hale, one of the things that I will suggest is that this product works best for light industrial, high turnover, lower wage type industries. It's, where the XMod is going to be largely affected by the propensity from litigation that happens in this type of industry in class code. Next. So one of the things that, and this just kind of give you some of our results of being able to leverage the carve out. So our lifetime incurred to pure premium is about 59%. So pure premium is average. So our incurred to average is about 59%. But the real interesting thing is you can see from those XMods, our customers are not average. Our customers are incurring claims prior to coming to Samuel Hale well in excess of 200% of average. So that's a real good stat to show the benefit of it, because it's lifetime across all class codes and all of our customers. 86% of those claims are closed through the 2021 policy year for us. So 2016 through 2021, I don't believe we have any claims still open from 16, 17, 18, and we have 4 claims still open from 2019. So the biggest benefit of this is claims close quick. And the net, the reason why behind all that, we have 0 disputes that have been decided at the WCAB out of over 1,000 attempts. Next. So why should you care about all this? Well, we're entering into a hard market, which means premiums can double for those, we've been in a soft market for the last 7 years, but for those who've been around long enough to know what happens during a hard market, it can be devastating for customers. And so the discounting of the soft market is likely going away here in the next few years. And the big reasons that are driving that are, investment returns are down. A lot of carriers were buying rates because of the great returns they could get with the premium dollars. Also, the reinsurance markets are getting hammered with natural disasters like the fires we see in California. One of the other big trends that's affecting the hard market are jury settlements. Jury settlements are increasing in size dramatically. And then you probably hear from the news and your customers this issue with recession, which will likely decrease premiums, and the other dirty word, inflation. And the reason why inflation is so impactful on workers' comp, and the reason why we're going to start seeing these increases, is the underwriters and actuaries are trying to predict how that inflation is going to affect the tail. So the tail liability of medical costs and indemnity are starting to become a real issue to actuaries. Next slide. And lastly, I don't know if anybody knows the story of Jerry and Marge Go Large, but it's a movie about where Bryan Cranston and Annette Bening play the underdog story of an unlikely couple who found a way to beat the unfair game of the lottery. And they won $27 million based on a unique understanding of statistics and became national heroes. So this is, again, just kind of shows you how people view the underdog. and how you can use statistics to, be on 60 Minutes, and eventually they made a movie about them. So I think now more than ever is the time where insurance agents can go beyond spreadsheeting rates, and their customers are going to demand real solutions to the systemic problems that drive your clients crazy. And I think the carve out can allow you to be that hero for your clients by defeating these scam attorneys and entitled employees, so that you can help them win the unfair game of workers' comp. And who knows, if you do enough of it, maybe they'll make a movie about you. So I wanted to whip through that as fast as possible. I know we had, I think we're through about 21, 22 minutes. So at this point, I know there's probably a lot of questions. Happy to take questions, and they also let me know that there is some handout material available. So, Justin, you want to?
Mike, it looks like. Can you hear me?
I can.
Looks like the first question that came through is, do you have to be a union company to participate in the carve out?
That's a great question. So when the law was created, the rules that California put forth and said, if you want to create a separate system, we do not want to be responsible for changing how the benefits are administered or the jurisdiction for the disputes. So they wanted someone to represent the employees when you apply for the carve out and in order to get it approved. So unions have traditionally been the way for that to happen. Ours was kind of unique in that we back in 2004, when the law was created, the 32.1.7, we were able to sit down with the head of the Department of Industrial Relations and create a very unique CBA that allowed us to go to any industry and geographically wherever we wanted. So it is a collective bargain agreement. However, no one unionized Samuel Hale. We simply went to them because we needed the benefit, and what it did was unlock millions of dollars that we split up between us, the employees, and our CBA called the Pact.
Awesome. The next question is, on average, how much does this save clients?
So there's a multitude of things that go into the savings. One is like on that slide that we showed earlier, that demonstrates how much of the incurred cost of the customer is litigated. And so that kind of gives you the potential savings. I would say generally, if you took that number and you took half of it, you would have a pretty conservative number, up to as high as 80%. We've seen some customers achieve. But there's a couple other factors that go into that. I mentioned before having a ecosystem that's going to cooperate. So one of the advantages we have had in starting small is we really built the company around the carve out. But if you were, let's say, Safeway grocery stores, and you applied for the carve out, you could be granted the carve out and have your own set of rules and disputes and everything. But there's quite a few employees that have to participate in the program. So getting the cooperation of your internal staff, making sure you're working with a TPA that is agile enough to utilize the benefits of the ADR program. I'll give you an example. When we first started ours, we had AmTrust, and AmTrust, their TPA wouldn't send the letter to the WCAB asking them to dismiss the cases due to lack of jurisdiction. Why they didn't do that, I mean, we eventually got them to do it, but they were just like uncomfortable because they weren't used to it. So, so it requires coordination. There's also, you know, choosing an ombudsman and all of those kinds of things that you know, play in heavy in terms of how much you can save.
All right, looks like the next one is, what is the minimum initial cost to enter ADR?
Well, it's a tough one because some of it is, you know, soft costs of just how your company is structured. I believe the requirements for an employer are just that you have an agreement with your employees that states that ADR is something that both parties are interested in, and you have a minimum of, I think it's $50,000 of premium. So outside of that, it's really more the costs of getting it put together, the soft costs of structuring it that way. And then, you know, also getting depending on how big you are and how much of the savings you can participate in, you know, it's getting a carrier to understand the savings and allow you to participate in that, you know, depending on your size. So many of these companies are large self-insureds where they are the insurance company. When we started, we were pretty small, and all we could get was a discount on the insurance. So the insurance company largely benefited from our program in the early years. And as we got bigger and the program became more, you know, had more history behind it, we were able to move to a, you know, $500,000 deductible and ultimately to a captive.
All right, next question. Do employees need to agree to be put in the program?
Yeah, so the way we do it is we have a collective bargaining agreement with the employees called the Pact. And so when someone becomes an employee of us and one of our customers, they sign that agreement. There's a bunch of benefits in it for the employee, and there is an option to not sign it. By not signing it, they lose the benefits, but they're still ultimately held to the jurisdiction and the rules of our ADR program.
All right. Why wouldn't everyone do this?
Well, it's you know, first of all, back to that understanding. You have to understand for your business what's at stake. You know, if you know, people in the warehousing logistics industry or restaurants, et cetera, where there's high turnover, lower paid employees, they're going to see that litigation cost in their claims if they know how to look for it. So those are the ones who are going to benefit the most. And remind me of the question again, Justin. Sorry, I got lost.
Yeah, it was why would you put it on those programs?
Yeah. So it's about assessing the size of the opportunity and make sure that there's you know, enough opportunity for you to go through all the hassle for it. The second thing is getting the CBA with the employees. You know, pretty much everybody in it is unionized. I don't consider us to be unionized because while we do have a collective bargaining agreement, ours is specifically for how we handle workers' comp disputes, how we handle labor disputes, and how we distribute some of the earnings that come from that. And I think that's the other big one. And it just requires kind of a, you know, a really savvy team of professionals to help you put it together, because it takes time and you have to have your your prize on the your eye on the prize in the long run. It isn't going to necessarily immediately create a savings. Anything else?
Looks like that's all it on the questions.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having us on. There's some information in the handouts down there, and we're open to answer questions and offline. So thanks again, Jen.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. I want to thank Michael for his time and insight today, as well as our new associate member, Samuel Hale, for sponsoring today's webinar and for being one of our sponsors at our upcoming Blue Ribbon Conference. That concludes the webinar. Thank you for participating.